Hello. Okay. Looks we got Mackenzie and Allison on Zoom. Do we have anyone in the classroom or I don't see anyone.
It does not look like it.
Okay, cool. And Mackenzie and Allison, can you guys you don't have to come on video if you don't want, but send me a thumbs up that you can hear me okay, or something so I know you're here and you're present, or
Yeah, I can hear you.
okay, cool.
Good morning.
Good morning. Awesome. It is just about 9 a.m. So we'll just give that last minute for anyone else who's jumping in to jump in. Good morning, Melinda.
Good morning, Bethany. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Good. You're feeling good?
You know, I am. I started OT on my elbow yesterday, and holy cow, it is exhausting.
Oh my gosh. Did they make you hurt a little bit?
Yes, and I have to do these workouts on it 4 to 5 times a day. And
yeah.
who knew?
I still recommend doing them, even though it's
Yeah,
I just want to make can you guys hear me now in Albany? I'm just trying to make sure everything's working. Can you hear me?
I can. Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So I've got everything set up here for if people are coming in person, and maybe Billy's going to be joining us. I'm not sure, but thank you. Thank you, Bethany, for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be.
Hey, Bethany, I just want you to know I'm meeting an appraiser.
Okay.
And it shouldn't take me very long, but I'm gonna mute and turn off my camera, but I'll be here in spirit and listening.
Love it. Okay, glad you're all here. Okay, so we've got Melinda, Allison, and Mackenzie. Super glad you guys are here today. We're just gonna dive in. It's 9 a.m. and we want to respect your guys' time and get through today's class. Oh, and do we have somebody in person?
Yeah, Billy's here.
Hi, Billy. How are you doing?
How you doing?
I'm good. Wonderful. Okay.
Swipe?
Yeah, this is Bethany.
Yes.
For those you might want to introduce. It says Zach on your signature, so you might want to introduce yourself.
Yes. Okay. Yes, for those of you who don't know, my name is Bethany Olson. My husband and I have a small team up here in the Portland metro area. We live in Newburgh. And yeah, so we've been selling real estate for I've been selling real estate for almost 9 years in February on my own. But my little claim to fame from the Albany Corvallis area is that you might know my parents, Lionel and Kristen Wilson. And when my dad got into real estate, I was his little assistant starting up. I was probably 13, 14. Door knocking, handing out flyers. I did all of his marketing for him at the time, doing transaction coordinating, things like that. Back when there were different transaction coordinating rules, so don't come at him for that. Yeah, I feel like I've been raised in real estate, and now my husband and run our own business. We also on the side we have a medium-sized rental portfolio. We also own a construction company, and we do property management. So yep, that's us. And if you guys have any buyers or sellers up in the Portland metro area, send them our way. We'd love to help them. Okay, let's get into it today because there is a lot of material for today for us to cover. If you guys have any questions, you guys, we have a little bit of a smaller group, so sometimes it's just a little easier for you to just kind of ask as we go. that way we can just get them answered and move on instead of you forgetting. And I would hate for you to forget. Okay. You guys are in the transaction section of Ignite. So you guys are getting to the end. Congratulations. Way to make it through, way to stick with it. I will tell you, when I actually started selling real estate, my husband and I had just gotten married. And I lived in Corvallis, Albany my whole life pretty much. And we moved up to Newburgh / the Chicago metro area. So I had no sphere. I didn't really know anyone. And I followed all of these Ignite steps, everything that we were supposed to do, and created a successful business for myself. And now I'm at the point in my career where, because I continue to follow the systems that KW gives me, I'm now reselling homes that my buyers purchased a couple of years ago or back at the beginning of my career, and helping them upgrade. And honestly, it's the best way to upgrade your price point, because I'm not having to go out and lead generate for those leads. But it's those systems and that follow-up that I've continued. So you guys, great job for sticking with it. I'm just going to do a little pulse on you guys here. Is how are you guys feeling so far? Any challenges that you guys are having, or things that have come up that you're like, how do we handle this with Ignite right now? Billy, you're the only one I can see, so.
So I'll just try to put it out there. I think my biggest thing is that I want to improve on is I'm building lots of relationships, and I've got a great sphere, so I'm very fortunate in that sense, but it's taking a good sphere and relationships and converting, really making sure I'm dissecting what's going well and what I need to improve on, taking conversations to converting. And that's kind of been my focal point this last week, and kind of moving forward is, how do you take it into a table conversation and the next step, instead of just great conversations and then it dies.
That is, Billy, that is like a really great question. And a really great thing to recognize, because I feel like some of the biggest burnout that can happen, I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb really fast. So sorry, I didn't do that before. One of the really big things that I feel like can happen, in the way that we can get really burnt out, is that we're having great conversations over and over and over again, but then they're not profitable, right? Like, especially with friends and family, because they're like, oh yeah, you like to talk about real estate, I like to talk about real estate, you know, like I'm interested. And you have these conversations over and over again, or you have really good chats. And then they all of a sudden are like, guess what? I bought a house. And you're like, I wasn't having this conversation with you so that you could go buy a house with somebody else, or write an offer, or do XYZ, or whatever it was. So that's a really good point. We're going to kind of talk about that, but I want to address that right now is, you have to, what is the book? Oh, is it it might be in the MREA. I might have to ask Laura, unless Laura's still there. But there is like 8 or 10 different closes, right? I am not an aggressive person. By nature, I'm just not very aggressive. And so I have had to memorize different sentences for myself to help kind of cut that conversation off, so that I don't get burnt out, while also like pushing myself to closing, like to closing, like to converting. There we go. That's a better word. So there's like, I think it's in the MREA. I don't remember what page it's on, and I don't have my book. My book is too high for me to reach because of my broken arm. So, but there's like 8 or 10 different closes, and mine is, I always do either an assumptive close or something along those lines, where I like to say like, wow, it sounds like you're like really interested in real estate right now, or seeing what the market is. My next step is I always just do a 1 hour meeting or a 30-minute meeting, depending on, you know, I say what kind of time, depending, where we can just kind of like really dive into what it is you're looking for and what your goals are. Would you be interested in setting up a time to do that? And I like kind of just stop talking there, and I see where the response is, because sometimes it's like they're just talking about real estate to talk about real estate because they know that I'm interested in it, or this is my career. So in order to not burn myself out, I don't want to sit while I'm, I don't know, at a mom's group or at church or at wherever and sit and talk about my job the whole time, unless it's going to be a profitable conversation.
Yeah.
Not meaning profitable, like, oh, I'm going to make money off you. I mean, like, you're going to probably work with me or whatever. Like, I want to move on and have other conversations. I don't want to sit here and just talk about work unless somebody's actually wanting to talk about like buying and selling in that. And so I always just, like, I'd love to set up a time to meet with you so we can talk about that. And that really gauges, because sometimes they're like, oh, I'm not actually really interested in buying. And you're like, great, cool. I can kind of cut this conversation off. Or they're like, actually, I'm already working with an agent. And they're like trying to talk to you about the house on 123 Main Street. And like, do you think I could get it for less money and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, if you're already working with an agent, you should definitely be having that conversation with them. They'll be able to steer you in the right direction. And just kind of controlling those conversations. But look at that list. I will, maybe Corinne, could you look up where those closes are in MREA and post that in the chat? I think she's talking to somebody. Because sometimes just having those sentences memorized to convert the conversation over is just what you need, because you just need to find one that kind of aligns with who you are. My coach had told me to say something along the lines of like, hey, I actually don't really talk about business outside of it, or, whatever it is. Or maybe you are having a business meeting and then you say, okay, the next step, and this is what I use all the time. The next step is this. Are you ready to move on to that, or where are we at? So the next step is for us to set a consultation. The next step would be for us to get pre-approved. Are you ready for that? And a lot of the time it's like, oh, I don't want to get pre-approved. I'm not ready for that. Okay, well, what is your timeline then? If you're not ready to buy right now, but you're wanting to have this conversation, what are you thinking? And then you can kind of start peeling back the layers to figure out what is the conversation that we haven't had that is actually holding them back from moving forward. Is there a condition where, well, they actually don't have good credit, so they're working on building their credit, but they're kind of embarrassed to tell me that, so it didn't come right out? Or is it, I'm just not comfortable with you yet, so I'm not willing to trust you to give you my business? Does that all make sense?
Yeah, very much so. I'm curious to see what you have for that information when you're saying it's in the MRE. If Corinne has that, or is that something that we have already? I'm curious to see what those top 10 closing lines are to get to that table to set those needs.
Yeah, Corinne, if you could by chance, or ask Laura probably hasn't memorized wherever the closing section is on in the MREA book. There's a whole section on like 10 closes and 10 ways to close people. And if you could get that out to the Ignite group, that would be awesome. Thank you. Okay. Let's move on, unless anybody has anything else they want to ask before we dive into today's information. Cool. All right, we are talking about working with buyers and sellers. All right, this is where we're headed. Okay, virtually every top producing agent we have ever worked with has a deep and almost inherent sense of service. They have a servant's heart and place their buyers or sellers' real estate experience above all else. They're always thinking service. This is a really good quote from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And the reason I like it is because I see agents start getting themselves in trouble when they allow their ego to get in the way of their client's experience. So we need to remember that, because I don't usually see it as a problem with newer agents. It tends to be an agent who's been in the business 2, maybe 3 years, or gotten 5 to 10 transactions under their belt, and all of a sudden they know what's up, and they know what they're doing, and they know how they're doing it. And it's no, we have to remember and put ourselves back in the seat of it as the consumer, as the client, and remember that this is a huge deal. This is a huge purchase, and keep our perspective around, not around making money, not around getting people in and out and having the fastest relationship with them as we possibly can in XYZ. It's around creating an experience that you're creating customers and clients for life. Because maybe this person is only buying $175,000 manufactured home in a park. They have the right to have your attention and your energy if you're taking clients at that price point. And if you cannot give them the energy that they deserve, and then you need to pass them off to somebody else. So I really like this quote. Okay. So we're going to talk about success with clients. All right. So when we have a great client relationship, the key is this: 100%. I need to move you guys over because I cannot see my whole screen. There it is. The key to this is 100% communication. That's what it is. And you just have to remember to continually communicate over and over and over and over again. And I try my hardest to communicate a minimum of 2 ways all the time. One of them is in writing and one of them is in voice. And anything I say over voice, so on a phone call, in person, XYZ, I try to follow that communication back up with either a text or an email. If it's really important, I put it in an email format because then it doesn't get lost in our text messages. So simple things like earnest money, deposit information, that always is in an email to me. Information that we, like if we got on the phone and discussed a repair addendum, we're going to put that back in an email. I'm going to put that back in an email form and send it to them. I do offer negotiation, or when we're writing up an offer, I always make them put what they're wanting me to put in the offer in writing first, write up the offer, then we go through the offer, and then they send it. So I have like and you guys, you can make this really easy on yourself, because I just started saving things as formatting. And so then I can just go, I have like a whole Google Drive folder with like these saved responses, so that I can just copy and paste it. And I'm not making more work for myself. So you want to provide a strong foundation for a sustainable relationship. Set and manage your expectations proactively throughout the transaction. Create peace of mind for your clients and enhance your credibility. The easiest way to do this, all 4 of these, is to do what you say you're going to do. Bottom line. Do not promise things and then not follow through. And if you just have to promise less, then that's what you do. Because nothing makes you look unprofessional faster than saying you're going to do something and not doing it. It's yeah. So you just need to follow through. And here's something I do to myself, because I am notorious for this. Like I am not good at this. It's I will, and I have had to set up systems for myself to make myself better at it, because I am so good at meeting with the client, being like, I'm totally going to do that for you. I'm like, so going to do that for you. I'm wonderful, XYZ. And then I go out and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I promise this person? And so now I used to just like write it on a piece of paper. Now I just like open up my phone while I'm in an appointment, or open up my notes on my iPad, because I use my iPad for all my appointments. I'm 99% paperless. And I open up an email. So I already am typing it into an email, and I just start writing the promises down. I said, great. Okay. You know what? I'm going to make sure to get you over the data for XYZ. And I'm like, I'm going to make that note right now. So I make sure that I get that done for you. And everyone respects that when I do that. So I go type it into my email, and I just have this email going for myself, email it to myself. Now I have an admin who then takes care of all the items she can and then passes off the ones she can't. I used to have it set up where it would go into my Gmail account, and then it would go pop into that person's file. And then immediately after my appointment, I'd go to that email and I'd start getting all of those done. So that way, wow, but look how amazing Bethany is. And I would just know when I set an appointment with a buyer or seller, I also tagged on an hour afterward, where I would usually just sit in my car or stay at the coffee shop, or if I was in my office, stay at my office and get that hour of promises done. And the amount of clients who are like, wow, you're so on top of it. It's the easiest thing. I just time blocked that little section and did the promises I said I would do. And it made a huge difference in my business, because I was struggling with over promising and under delivering. Okay. So there are 3 levels of service: purpose, value proposition, and fiduciary. The purpose is the master of service have a clear understanding of why they should be hired and can articulate it to anyone at any time. So this is you understanding why should somebody work with you instead of somebody else. And if you haven't sat down and written this out, I would like highly suggest doing that. It's who, and I'm not meaning like I'm the best real estate agent. I have done 70 million transactions and everyone should work with me. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm meaning because most of you are new. And so you don't necessarily have that credibility, but it can look like I have aligned myself with the #1 company. And I am the type of person who is willing to do what I need to do to find the information I need to create success for my client. I'm caring and going to make sure that my client feels cared for throughout the entire transaction. I am understanding and a wonderful listener, and I'm going to listen to my client's needs, right? Right now, that might be the service that you can offer to your client. It might not be, well, I've done 70 million transactions and I can offer this, this, and this. No. And you know what? It doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter as much as your client feeling heard, feeling understood, and you having the knowledge or knowing where to get that knowledge in order to get them toward their goal. Okay, value proposition. The best agents can translate their purpose and why people should hire them into a specific set of services they will provide. Okay. This is referring specifically to, this is more like your elevator pitch, right? And so you can write out your long purpose of like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Here's who I am. And then just translate that over and I respond promptly. I can get you the knowledge that you need, right? All of that kind of stuff. And then your fiduciary. We are a fiduciary state here. And so we have a fiduciary versus functionary relationship. Do you guys know the difference? Michael, what's the difference between fiduciary and functionary?
Functionary just does the minimum of what's required to basically just help you through the process. A fiduciary actually takes responsibility and walks you through the process and basically treats you and your money as their own.
Yes, 100%. Great job. Yeah. And so we want to work as a fiduciary and not as a functionary. And functionary, they're crossing I's. Nope, they're dotting I's and crossing T's. And a fiduciary is working for the client, right? It's not, oh, you're telling me you want me to write, an offer 80,000 under asking. Great. A fiduciary is, okay, let's talk about, do you actually want this home? Homes in the neighborhood on average are selling at 99.8% of list price. So offering 80,000 below isn't actually going to likely won't result in you getting the home. So how can we have this hard conversation around that? That's a fiduciary. Functionary is great. I'll get that written up. Okay. Let's talk dual agency for a second. I'm going to move right past this really quickly. I don't do it. The only time we've done 2 transactions, dual agency. Technically, it's been dual agency, and the only reason is because I represented the buyer or seller, and then my husband represented the buyer or seller. So we were negotiating against each other in a transaction. But we do not do dual agency. There are clients out there who do it. I do not know a way that I can maintain my fiduciary to my client in a dual agency, because if I know something about the buyer and I know something about the seller and you can't share that information to them, I just don't know how you can properly say things or advise your client well. You guys can come up with your own idea of if you think this is right or wrong, or if you have a way to do it. So I'm just not going to dive into that. Okay. So most important thing with your client is setting expectations. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys already finished your win the buyer and win the seller classes. And so how you reach the 3 levels of service for your client is largely about communication and education. And so you want to be able to, I set all of my expectations with my buyers and my sellers in my consultation. So I have sprinkled throughout those consultations sentences I say and things that I say to them in order to set the expectation. We dive, I think this is coming up, but we dive really hard into market data so that our expectation is set on their market. We dive into the way that we communicate so they understand how communication works, all of that kind of stuff. We review the entire transaction process with our clients. So we explain to them in the consultation how we're going to look for homes, why getting pre-approved is important, in the entire process. Once we find the right home, how showings are going to work, and then once we find the right home, the entire process start to close. What I explained to them, like for an appraisal, for example, what 4 things can happen in appraisal. It appraises out, it appraises higher, it appraises lower. 3 things. And then what happens if it appraises lower? You come up with a difference that, like I explain all of these things so that they know up front, these things could happen. And then I explain to them, and here's how we're going to handle it. Here's what we can do. Here's how we can negotiate. But let's go back to communication. I have 0 expectation that they're going to remember any of that. They're not. What I'm doing is showing them, I'm telling you this information now, and you're going to trust me to be able to do this on your behalf. So you're going to know that I know that this could happen, and we're going to have this conversation. When we get there, we can say, okay, we talked about this a while ago. Again, here are the 3 things that can happen with the appraisal. This one happened, it appraised out low. So here are our options. This is what we can do here. So let's figure out what a win for you would be. And then I'm going to go negotiate on your behalf. And you kind of already knew this was coming because we did talk about this before. And then it alleviates the stress. And I'm always saying in the transaction, okay, here's where we're at, and this is where we're going. Awesome. We found the home. We wrote an offer. Now we're just going to wait and see what the other side says. We gave them a timeline of tomorrow at 5 p.m. So I wouldn't expect for us to hear back until around 5 p.m. A lot of sellers like to take it to that very last moment. So just know that might happen. And then these are great conversations because when you say that, it might happen. It might go until 5 p.m. You can hear the stories that clients like to create because they'll say, are they just trying to use this to get other offers? And a lot of the time, these stories are out of like kind of fear, or a lot of the time it's fear because they want the house. So they're scared that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to get it. And they're using my offer up against other people. And that's where you get to come in and you get to be the communication hero and say, you know what? Sometimes that does happen. You're right. Sometimes it does. And in this case, we know that we wrote the offer that is best for you. And it is not in your best interest to push the seller to its breaking point and make him make a decision right now, because that's going to actually make while this is a transaction, there are still emotions involved, and emotions are what cause people to make decisions. It's not actually the transaction part that makes people make decisions. It's the emotional part. So if we put a really tight timeline on them, they're likely to feel like really restricted and not going to feel good about your offer, even though you wrote a great offer. So while that could happen, it's very unlikely that they're pushing for that. They're usually just, most people have jobs. Most people have this, XYZ, kids sports, blah, 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 whatever it is. And explaining it to them. And then you're able to have that communication. And that's the type of customer service that people need. Because if I hadn't set the expectation for 5 p.m. and then they hadn't responded to that, sometimes they're like, okay, great. And you're like, cool, you guys are good to go. Sounds great. I'm able to then curb their expectation, because when you don't have that conversation and you submitted the offer on Tuesday at 1 p.m. and offer, it expires on Wednesday at 5, you're going to get 70 million texts. Bottom line. They're going to be like, have you heard yet? Have you heard yet? Have you heard yet? How come they haven't responded yet? And you're like, well, the sellers probably have jobs and they probably have other things going on. And they do want to respond because they put their home on the market. They want to sell their home. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking. I mean, I am teaching class, but this section has like a lot of talking. So if you're like, can you say something again? Or I have a question about that, just let me know. Okay. So that all that to say is when I do my consultation and I take them through all of the things to get your home sold, or all of the things from writing an offer to closing, and I explain how to get your earnest money back, and I explain what property disclosures are, and I explain all of these things. I go into detail because the truth is I'm kind of trying to overwhelm them. And I'm not trying to overwhelm them in like a bad way, but in understanding that there is a lot more that goes into this transaction than just me opening a door for them and then writing an offer. Like, I am here for them the whole time. Okay, set time expectations. This is my favorite. You guys, if you are emailing or texting your client after whatever the time period, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., whatever your time period is, you are teaching people how to treat you. That's it. So if you are saying, my work hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., awesome. You also have to hold those work hours, because now unconsciously, when they get an email from you at 10 p.m., you seem like the liar, because those aren't really your work hours. So you have to hold your own. Okay. I work at night all the time. I have little kids. I try to take off from 5 to 7:30 is their dinner, bedtime, playing, XYZ. So I take that time off and I go back to work after my kids are done, usually around 7:30, 8 p.m. But I use tools in my toolbox where I pre-write a bunch of emails. I pre-write these text messages so that I can send them the next day in my work hours. Because as soon as you start crossing your own boundary, you're teaching other people that they can cross yours, and also that you're not true to your own word. Okay. So other thing with time expectations, you really have to set time expectations for showing for buyers. Okay. There are certain buyers that want to take 2 hours in a showing. They want to take an hour in a showing. You do not need more than 20 to 30 minutes. I promise you. I promise you. The only time you need that is if you're on an acreage property and you're walking like, I don't know, you're walking like 20 acres, or you're on like a 4,000 square foot home. Most of the time, you need 20 minutes to see a home, 20. And longer than that tells me that either they love the home and it's like, great, why are we still here? It's just because you're so in love with it. Let's move on. Okay, let's go write that offer up. We don't need to stay here any longer. Or that they're trying to force themselves to like it. So those are the two things.
They're trying to force what?
Force themselves to like it.
Okay.
So that's when they're like, okay, it's in their price point. It's in a location they like, but they just hate the home. And so then they're like, okay, well, maybe I could make this work. Well, maybe I can make this work. Well, maybe I can make this work. Okay, well, the bathroom, okay, this bathroom really is, how are we going to fit 3 kids in here in the morning? It's just so tight. It's so small. And they said there was a second bathroom, but it's just a toilet in a laundry room. This is so weird. You know, like things like that. They're trying to force it. And sometimes it's enough to just say, like, you don't have to love this home. Like, we can go and think on it. Like, this home might not be right for you. But I set the expectation up front that we have about 30 minutes to do a showing. And at 20 minutes in, I start a conversation with them about it. I mean, we're talking the whole time, but I'm like, okay, well, where are we at with this? What do you think? You know, be careful, watch for cameras. Don't have this conversation if you see cameras around. Say like, hey, they are recording us right now, so let's walk outside, or let's go to the car and get on the phone. But set those time expectations. And a lot of the time it's simply is like, well, we need to give the sellers back their home, so let's have that conversation outside of the home. And here's the thing, especially with those people who are trying to convince themselves, getting out of the home and out of the environment is often enough of a brain pattern interrupt for them to be like, yeah, you're right. Or not you're right, but like, this isn't a good fit for me. Like, I'm just trying to force it because my landlord's selling my house and I need to be somewhere in 45 days. and then you remind them back of their goals that you had was that you actually have a place you can go month to month. So would you be comfortable getting into this home even though you don't love it? Like, and sometimes it's, yeah, they are comfortable getting a home that they don't love because this is their first home and they're only planning on staying there for 2 years and they're using that to build equity and blah, blah, blah. But you already know all that information, so you know how to help them guide that conversation. But set that time expectation. I do not do long showings. It's just, I'm not going to waste my time in a home that we don't love. Also, don't see homes that you walk in and you're like, oh, you hate this home. We just leave. I'm like, great. Okay, awesome. We came in, we realized you don't like it. The pictures online were completely misleading. So let's move on. We don't need to stay here. I'd rather us be early for our next showing or have time to stop for coffee on our way to the next house than stand in a house that we're not interested in. So set those time expectations and remind them over and over and over again. Also, with your when you're in the transaction, actually, I think that's the next one. Set document expectations. When you're in the transaction, and I set this up in my consultation. Hold on, Michael, Billy, I'll get there in just a sec. When you're in the transaction and you're setting up expectations around paperwork, and I always tell people, I'm going to do my darndest. I'm going to do my hardest to not create an emergency in real estate because there shouldn't be. It's real estate. Nobody's dying, hopefully. And I always make that joke. So the hope is that we know, I said, I always say the residential sale agreement is laid out in a way where we know what our timelines are up front. However, I cannot control what the other side is going to do timing wise. So I'm going to do the best in my ability to tell you if we're going to be hitting a tight timeline, if we're going to have to be responding to something quickly and things like that in as much advance notice as I can. I can't always control that, but I will control whatever I can. And then they know that I'm working hard on their behalf to make sure that we're not. So for example, the one that it comes up with the most tends to be the inspection report, right? Inspection contingency. And I will tell them, okay, our inspection contingency ends on Friday at 5. It's Wednesday. Great. We're doing good. Let's get this document. I want to get it over today so that they have time to review and look at everything. And hopefully we will have it back before Friday. But just know that we have Friday at 5 p.m. as a tight timeline. And so we could be having a lot of things that need to happen between 3:30 and 5 o'clock on Friday. And sometimes they'll say to me, I have a really busy work day. I cannot do that. And I'll say, perfect. You know what? When we send this over, let's just send them an extension till Monday at 5. That way, and I will let them know that you have a really tight timeline and you actually need this buttoned up by either 3 o'clock on Friday, or we need that extension signed because you're going to be in a really important meeting. That's the kind of expectation that you want to set. Okay, Billy, what was your question?
So on your setting time expectations and pre-writing emails.
Yep.
Question, how do you do the pre-writing text where maybe the text ends at 8 in the morning or?
So with the text messages, I actually just put them in notes. So I just read it in a note and then I have like
emails. Is there any info on that?
In the email, you can preset emails to send out. I don't know, because my husband's techie. I don't know if that's I think Gmail just does it now. It used to be an extension that you had to add to your email. I think now Gmail allows you to type an email and then just put it in, but mine is an extension. And then
okay.
For text messages, I just have like at night, if I have them, I have like 5 texts or 4 texts or whatever it is that I'm trying to send out the next morning because my brain was like, oh, you didn't do this, this, and this. So I got those all done. And then in the morning, I go to my notes section of my phone and I send all of those like right when I wake up and then move on. So, so one of the things you want to make sure you're always doing is future pacing your clients. This is where we're at. This is where we're going. Okay. We just got under contract. They accepted our document. Awesome. I'm going to be sending you a bunch of docs right now. None of them are super, this is what I say to my clients. None of them are super time sensitive right now. But I would like for you to get them done in the next 24 to 48 hours. What is time sensitive is that the next thing is for you to get your earnest money in within this time period. And so that is your focus. And you're going to get an email from me on all of the directions around that. So you'll see that coming up in your email. That is your focus. And then reviewing those documents, maybe when you're at home after dinner, whatever it is. And if you have any questions on those, just send me a text, or we can get on the phone and talk through them. That's the type of expectation setting we do with documents. It's future pacing as well. Okay. Okay, set communication expectations. This is what I say. I'm sitting here right now meeting with you, and it is really important to me that you have my full attention right now. So I don't have my phone out. And here's the thing, guys. Don't have your phone unless you're like using your phone for business. And this is one of the reasons I got an iPad, because I use my iPad for business. So it looks less. There's like this Harvard study saying as soon as you have a phone in between you and somebody else, it creates a barrier. The barrier isn't necessarily like a spoken barrier or anything like that. It just creates a barrier in a relationship with people. So if you're going on a first date and you have your phone out, you're creating a barrier between that person. Same with your clients. You're creating a barrier in between you and that person unconsciously. And people have become so accustomed to it that they forget. And so put your phone somewhere else in your pocket. I carry a crossbody bag when I'm at showings and things like that. And I put my phone in my crossbody bag because I wear dresses a lot. So I don't have a spot for it. So I tell them when I'm meeting with them, like, hey, right now when we're meeting, it is so important to me that I give you my full and undivided attention. And so when I'm meeting with other clients as well, I do the same for them. And I promise you that I will get back to you. If I'm with another client and you have a question for me, I will get back to you. I also want you to know that there will be some times when we're together and I have a timeline coming up on another transaction. So I'm just aware of that. And I'm might have to have my phone out when we're out seeing a home or something in order to make that timeline work, in order to serve my clients the best on that sense. And that's the same for you. So when we're up against a tight timeline and I'm in appointments, I will have my phone out and make sure that I am going to have that and not going to miss a timeline or anything like that for you, because it's important to me that we're able to meet those expectations and those guidelines. And they're always like, oh yeah, great, totally get that. And then when I do get an important call and we're seeing houses and I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, I'm so sorry, I have to take this. And they're like, oh yeah, go for it. You're totally good. But that's because I'm not pulling my phone out and checking it every 5 minutes. I'm not doing this. It's only when it's actually necessary. Consistency matters with your clients. I relate my clients, and obviously I don't tell them this, but to my like training my 3-year-old and 2-year-old. Consistency. The moment that you do something inconsistent, for some reason, they just like grab onto that and they're like, this is what you always do. And you're like, no, this one time I did this. So if you're going to step out of this consistent patterns and boundaries that you are setting, you need to verbally say that and say, now, I don't normally do this. This is an exception, but if you're available, I'd love to get on a Zoom call at 8 p.m. after your kids are in bed and my kids are in bed, and we can really go through these documents. Okay, whatever it is, that boundary that you say that you're setting and you're breaking it, let them know, okay, this is an exception. If you find yourself saying you're making it an exception all the time, you need to change your own boundaries or you need to hold your boundary more. Okay, set contingencies. What it says here in the notebook is, as a listing agent, prepare your sellers. If you're going to be out of town for a long period of time, make sure they know that somebody will always cover for you XYZ. I do not do that. Here is what I do. I will tell you what I do because I've worked with a lot of different buyers and sellers, and they all have different opinions on things. And so what I found works the best for me is I don't actually ever tell my clients when I'm out of town or leaving. What I say to them, unless it's like, I'm going to Mexico for a week in October, my clients, I will tell them probably the day beforehand. This is saying like, tell them like if you're starting work with a client in March and you're going to close on a home with them in May, let them know that you have a wedding in May, in March. I don't do that. And the reason is because people for some reason have views about it. I learned this most in my pregnancy because I've had 3 babies while in real estate. And all of a sudden somebody sees I'm pregnant and they're like, oh, maybe I should work with somebody else. Like, I don't want to take away from your time with the baby. Nope, this is my job. Like, you're not taking away from time with my baby. I have time set aside outside of my baby to deal with this or to work. Is I wait till the last minute to tell them, to be honest. And I always make sure I'm usually the person still that they're communicating with. And I'll say like, hey, just want to let you know for example, this last weekend, I'm camping this weekend. If you need to go see a property, I have an agent for you. Or I don't even say that. And sometimes they send me a text and say, hey, I want to go see this property, and say, awesome, I'm unavailable at that time, but my friend and co-agent, blah, 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 is available. So she can meet you over there. And they're like, great, cool. And I just leave it at that. They don't need to know that I'm camping all weekend and not available completely to them. It's different if you're like out of the country and have 0 reception. And I've had that. My husband and I went to Italy for 21 days a couple years ago. And I let them all know that week that I was leaving, saying, hey, I want to let you know I'm leaving for Italy. Here is who you contact. This is your person. And I did an intro text with all of those people so that they had it covered and, had it passed really well. And then I also had my principal broker at the time, or reviewing broker at the time, on all of these communications. That way she could help make sure nothing got missed. That's a more rare situation because I just had very limited reception. But I do not set it up like months in advance. I do it the day or the week before, or sometimes I don't even tell them. And then when they're asking for something, I'm like, I'm actually unavailable at that time. This person's available. And I don't tell them why I'm unavailable. They don't need to know that I'm at my brother's son's 9th birthday party. They don't need to know that because they're going to have some form of view of you not being available. And it's, nope, I'm in an appointment. Nope, I have something going on, or I'm unavailable. They're going to all of a sudden feel less important, even though it's okay for us as realtors to have a life. Okay. Market expectations. You guys, this is the most important. This is so important. And if you do not know how to find market data for the area that you are working in, write that down as your action item today. I need to figure out how to get in the market data. I'm not going to take the time to do that. But I bet Corinne will help you. I bet you could set a meeting with Corinne and she'd figure that out with you. But okay. And then here's the thing. I let the contract and I let the market data do the heavy lifting for me. So I will say, here's what the data says. What do you think about that? And then this gives me so much insight into the way that they're interpreting things. And like for a seller, for example, if they're like, well, yeah, but my house is greater than everyone else's, I'm like, great. Okay. Now I know what my pushback is. Now I know what I'm up against. Cool. I'll also say the question, how do you feel like the data I just showed you relates to your home or the home we just looked at? Okay. But I have to already have set up all of this data knowledge for them. So when I do my consultations, I dive into the data hard, and everyone's going to ask you, but where do you think it's going? What do you think is happening in the market? Are we in a recession? Is the market going to crash? Are interest rates going to jump? Are blah, 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 whatever. Fill in the blank here. And my answer is always, well, the data has shown this in the past. So this is likely where we're going, but there are always outliers. Look at 2007, 2008, always outliers. The data has been doing this. The data is trending this way. The data is doing this. I never put the data on me because I'm not the data person. I'm just sharing the data that I am receiving. Because once you start making it about it, once you're like, well, I think this is going to happen, da, 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 all of a sudden you've lost some credibility with them because you don't actually know. So don't say things that you don't actually know, Okay. We're almost through this section, guys. And then I can what? Okay. Set expectations seamlessly with KW check. Awesome. Use check if you want. You should. Okay, we ask for referrals throughout the transaction. Here's how I do it. I do a buyer consultation. And I say, hey, if you found this helpful, do you know anybody else who's looking to buy that would also find this information helpful? Boom, easy close, right? Like, that's so easy. And they're like, oh no, I don't really know anyone. Great, thanks for thinking about that. The statistic is 68% of sellers who use an agent found their agent through a referral of a friend or a family member. That's a big number, 68%. Okay, so you just have to ask for help, or like ask for it. And then I just asked for it a couple times during the transaction. Here's the thing. I am not a hard closer. I am not pushy, sometimes to a downfall to myself. And I just had to create into my systems, this is when I'm going to ask for a referral. This is when I'm going to ask for a referral. And I asked for it 3 times during the transaction, once at the consultation, and then once at the closing table when we get to closing, and then sometime in the middle. Sometimes it's when we get an accepted offer. Sometimes it's when, like, one of the last transactions, it's sometime like right in that season is I try to ask for a referral. So like last time it was like, actually we got them out of a transaction. They ended up not loving the home, and we got them under contract, and 2 days later we backed out. And they were like, oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I said, not a big deal at all. Like, I want to make sure that you're getting in a home that actually matters to you, and that you're going to love, and that you're going to feel comfortable making this big investment on. And we had a small conversation around that. And they said, you know, actually, do you know anybody else who we could help? Because I want to make sure other people, other friends and family that you have, our coworkers, are getting the same level of care that we're giving you guys. And they're like, oh yeah, let me see who I know. And then we got a referral. Okay. Reviews are important, you guys. The internet is not going away. People look online for reviews, ask for them. We have a templated email that we send to ask for them. Bottom line. This says to ask for them during the transaction. If you would like to do that, you totally can. I send an email I actually ask them to fill out the review right before we get to closing, and say, hey, would you guys be willing to do a review for me? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And I send we send an email, a templated email saying, like, here's where you can give us a review. And we have Facebook and Google, I think, are our 2 options. And then we send it again after closing if they didn't fill it out. And then we ask both husband and wife to fill it out, or spouses, or whoever's on the transaction. We ask both of them to do it if there's 2. Okay. So seller reviews and buyer reviews. For seller reviews, it's the statistics show that people like reading reviews that say clients' home sold quickly, they got asking price or above, and they were impressed by your service. Okay. Buyer reviews, they like to say that the buyer found their home quickly, the agent negotiated a great price, and the transaction went smoothly, not smoothie, and they were impressed by the service. Whew, okay, I talked for a long time. We will move on after I have 1 or 2 or 2 or 3 ahas. So tell me what you guys think, and anything that stood out to you, or any questions you have.
So, is it Bethany?
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to go back to when you're asking for reviews. We tend to ask for reviews like a week after the transaction to kind of do a follow-up. What you think of your agent, what you think of the process, things like that. So I haven't done enough transactions to know enough of the consistency with it and when the best timing is. But you're saying you asked 3 times throughout the process to kind of keep it fresh in their mind and kind of hit on it and then move on, so they're more prepared for it. And when you ask for those reviews, do you ask for like name and contact information to follow up with them, or just to say a good word? At what point, how much do you push on it? Or if they say, actually, a friend of mine is actually thinking about buying, do you strike on that right then and there and kind of go, all right, let's talk about that? You know, is that something you feel
100%.
comfortable
Yep.
with? Can
So
you walk
if they
through
say,
how you-
yeah, if they say that, oh yeah, my next door neighbor Mikey is thinking about buying, I'll be like, oh, awesome. I'd love to talk with Mikey. I have found that the simplest way to do that is if you just do a text group between the three of us, you, me, and Mikey, and introduce me.
Okay.
And then a lot of the time, it's like a way more comfortable handoff for them to say, for them to like, they don't feel like they're giving you their information, even though they totally are. And they're able to introduce you. Now, we do get pushback on that sometimes. And they'll say, oh, well, I need to ask Mikey first. And I was like, totally, ask Mikey, see if he's comfortable with that. And then I'll just follow up with you about that. I don't ask, is it okay if I follow up with you? Or can I check in a couple days? I just make an assumptive close and say, I'll just follow up with you about that in a couple days. And then in a couple days, and I'll like put a little thing in my calendar to say like, ask Janet about Mikey. And I do it right then, is I put it in my calendar because I am going to forget.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, 2 p.m., 2 days later, it says, ask Janet about Mikey. And I'll be like, who's Mikey? And then I have to remember, oh yeah, hey, Janet, did you get a chance to ask Mikey about that? And then she'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. And she'll ask him right in that moment.
Okay.
Because that's what happens. But
Yeah.
most of the time, they'll set up a group chat between the three of us.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
I was just curious if it's like if you let it drift on by or you strike on it right then and there, because why it's fresh in their mind, like strike while the iron's hot kind of thing.
100%. And the reason I don't wait till the end to ask for referrals, but I do continually, I have a whole like VIP program that I have for my clients, where we're asking for referrals from them every single month, and we're giving giveaways, and they like win things when they give us referrals, blah, blah, blah. I have like this whole setup thing I do. Anyways, but when they're in a transaction, they are talking to everyone about real estate. And that is why it's such a good time to ask for referrals, because they're saying, oh yeah, I'm selling my home, or I'm buying my home, or blah, blah, blah. And that's their conversation they're having with everyone. And so anyone who's also thinking about buying, selling, or investing is also saying back to them, yeah, I've been thinking about buying. How's it going? Or like, man, the market is tough. Did you get multiple offers? I've seen like homes sitting on the market longer, and I was kind of thinking about selling this spring. So because it's enacting people's RAS, and you want to strike on those conversations, and that's why we don't wait. We ask right away. Okay. Any other ahas or questions?
Our screen is off in Albany again.
Say that again.
The screen is off in Albany again.
Oh, Corinne. I'll message her.
Is the screen not sharing again?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go call Madison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I promise that section, you guys, I know it looks like we're only on the second section and we're an hour in. That was the longest section. The other 3 sections are slower. I mean, or faster. Shorter. That was the word I was looking for. I made it there eventually. Okay. Let's talk about what buyers want most from their agents. They want you to help them find the right home to purchase. They want you to help negotiate terms. They want you to help with the price and negotiation of the price. Here's something I feel like it's a little bit different, but I've heard other agents don't do this, and I've heard other agents do. I never set the price for my buyers. I never say like, you have to offer $350 to get this home. And sometimes that can frustrate certain buyers. And here's why. This is exactly what I say to them in my consultation, when I set the expectations in the consultation, and then I set them again. I set them again at when we're writing offers. Is I say, it is not my job to come up with a price. It's my job to give you the data to make an informed decision that your household is comfortable with. And then I make a joke and I say, oddly enough, part of my job isn't paying your mortgage. Although that would be nice, I won't be the one paying it. So I want to make sure you're the one comfortable with your mortgage payments. Okay. And this is important because I never want to be blamed or be made the villain for them not getting their home or getting their home, right? So it's, they get their home, they pay $40,000 over asking price, and now they have a mortgage of XYZ, and now they're pissed because their agent pushed them to pay $40,000 over asking, and now they have this payment in XYZ, and they feel underwater and they feel upside down, and housing prices all of a sudden are in a small drop, and they're worried about their equity, and they're worried, you know, right? I never want to be blamed for that, so I do not pick the price of their home. What I say to them is we play this game, where, and a lot of the times we'll say, well, what are other people offering? Well, I don't know that most of the time. Sometimes the agent won't give that away, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's like, you can't focus on what other people are offering. You need to focus on what you're comfortable paying. We have the appraiser with the appraisal, which is going to be a checks and balance system to make sure you're not actually overpaying for the house, to make sure that you're within fair market value, and that the bank or your lender views this as a good investment at the price that you're paying. Okay, so we have that checks and balance. The question that I have for you is, what are you willing to pay for this home, even if you're not competing, or even whatever it is? So maybe there's 3 offers on the table. And so then we play, if the home, let's say the home's listed at $350. I said, okay, if the home sold to somebody else for $351,000, would you be upset? Yeah, I would pay $351. Great. Okay, if it sold for $360, would you be upset? Yes, I would pay $360. Okay, cool. If it sold for $370, would you be upset? I don't know if I'd go to $370. Okay, so you would be totally fine. 30 days, you didn't get the home and it sold for $370. Yeah, I think that's okay, great. What about $365? Well, I'd want to pay $365 for. I would pay $365. And then I play that game until we hit a max number for them. I'm not always pushing them into their max. This is if I'm in a multiple offer situation. So we play it kind of down to the 1,000, right? And so sometimes it's 366. And for some reason, cresting that 365 to 366, they'll go 366, but 367, whew, that's just too much for them. And here's the thing. You can't judge them in whatever number they're picking, right? You can't judge them in it. So you just, okay, great. You're just getting information from them. That's it. You're not judging them. Now you got to take that information as their buyer's agent and then relay it, because let's say they're looking at homes at 350 and their max every single time, even though they said they're comfortable paying 375, their max is 355. They won't write an offer over 355. Now we have that information and we can go back and say, hey, we've seen 5 homes. So here's a question. Here's something I always say is, I would rather ask you 500 questions and show you 5 homes than only ask you 5 questions and show you 500 homes. Okay. I say that multiple times. And so then I refer back to it. Hey, we've seen 5 homes. And it seems like the price point is, we're getting a little bit beat out of this price point because you're only comfortable going up 5,000 above this, and the average homes in this price point are selling at 103 point whatever percent. I pulled the data, I let the data do the heavy lifting. I said, so what that tells me is we probably need to be looking at a price point here. And I tell them what those numbers are, and I pulled the data and I have that conversation. And then I say, how does that make you feel? Right? Because emotions are what cause people to make decisions. And so we want to bring their emotions into it. So I've pulled the data, I pulled the logic, and now we're going to the emotions. And they usually say like, oh, it's just so frustrating that we keep getting beat out, and then interest rates are higher, and I just don't want my monthly to do this, and blah, 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 whatever it is. And I would say, great, totally, I get that. That probably feels really frustrating. I said, I'll say like, let's restart this for a second. Let's drop our home price then. Let's drop our search so that you're not seeing homes that you love that we actually aren't within your price point. And let's see, okay, that really puts your price point. If you're a max of 350 and homes are selling at an average of 103.8%, we really need to be looking at homes under 340,000.
It sounds like it's taking over.
Because we keep trying to cast it.
Thank you. And then that gives us the ability to have the conversation around that 340,000 and dig into, are they okay with the type of home that is in that price point? And I would rather have this conversation than go see another 15 homes with them and then constantly be upset and then them not buy because I'm not having the right conversations with them. Okay, I hope that all made sense. Okay. And this is why you do a buyer needs analysis. This is my 500 questions. So what I always say is I'd rather ask you 500 questions and only show you 5 homes than show you 500 homes and only ask you 5 questions. And all of these questions are like 10 more questions in them. So here's a question that I don't love this question, but I ask it every time. Do you have a preference for the year the house was built? I'm like, this is a dumb question. That's how I feel about it, right? But my feelings don't matter in this situation. Most of the time they're like, no, not really, unless they're buying new construction, right? Then they want brand new. But what comes out of this is most of the time, 90% of the time, it's no, not really, great, we move on. It's that 10% where they say, I really don't want any home that might have asbestos in it. Okay, all right, let's talk about that. Okay, now I have a great conversation that we can have around asbestos and the fears and the concerns that they have around that and lead-based paint. And they had this really bad experience, blah, 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 years ago, and their mom and their dog and cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever the situation was. And now I can understand their motivation. And had I not asked that question of, you have a year built, whatever, I may have been showing them a bunch of homes that they were uncomfortable with, but they didn't really know why, right? Because there's this saying that I hate. It's that buyers are liars. And what I want to say back to that is, no, you're just not asking the right questions as the agents. Buyers have to have discovery. They need to figure out what they don't know because they don't do this every single day. And so it is our job as the agent to help them discover what they don't know. Okay. These are really good questions. Are these in your guide? Are these in your booklet? If not, you should take a question. You should take a picture of this. I make sure that I have all of my questions for my buyer needs analysis written down so that it forces me to ask them. And I say, some of these questions would apply to you. Some of them I actually already know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyways, because they may have told me I do not want a manufactured home. And then, so I'm going to ask the question here. I'm going to say, are you comfortable with a manufactured home? And they're like, no. I say, okay, great. What if it's a manufactured home on land? Because you said you want a big yard. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, not all manufactured homes are in parks. Oh, well, I might be okay with that. Okay, cool. So let's keep that in our search and we won't pull it out. Okay. Next, buyer's lies. Okay. This is just a reminder that buyers are not liars. We just have to help them discover what they need. You guys, we just have to remember to ask them the right questions and continually ask the right questions. One of the things with that 500 questions in 5 homes is that, one of the other things I say is that I am doing my job well because I know once I've shown you 5 homes, we're either writing an offer or we're having a conversation.
I think we're ready if you're
And there's
ready.
no judgment around that. Can you mute yourself? Thanks. There's no judgment around, it's not going back for me, around that 5 homes. If we see 5 homes and they're not writing an offer, it tells me that I haven't asked enough questions or we need to reevaluate, right? It's that thing where it's like, well, they're only willing to go up to 355 and they had originally said 375. So we were looking at 350, 355 price point, and then that shifted. And now it's like, great, now we've seen 5 homes, we haven't wrote an offer, or we've gotten beat out and we're just not in the right price point. And so it gives us a really good gauge of where do we need to go from here? And we just have to remember as the agents to let our ego get out of the way and remember that these people don't do this every day and we do. And to make sure that we're helping them at the highest level and having patience with them. And they're not trying to waste our time. Most of them are not trying to waste our time. And most of them really do want to buy the home and really do want to help us. And they just don't know what they don't know. Okay. So you need to get comfortable having tough conversations. it is our job to have tough conversations. Here's where we get in trouble with the tough conversations is we feel so uncomfortable and so awkward that we fill the space with our words, which we shouldn't do. You need to just ask the question and let them answer and give them space for it and have an awkward pause. And this is where I'm seeing like, gosh, what's an example? A tough conversation with the seller is like, when we met initially, the market was doing this and you made the decision that you wanted to price your home above at the time what fair market value was saying. And now we haven't had any showings, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are around that. And I just sit there and I quietly wait and I listen. I see you, Billy. I'll ask in just a sec. And I sit and I wait and I listen. And I see where they're at because their motivation may have changed. I actually just had this happen where we're way overpriced on this listing up here in Portland. And they wanted to price it at this point, and I said, you know what? I don't think it's going to sell for that. And they said, that's fine. We're willing to do a price reduction in 3 weeks at $50,000 price reduction. They said, we just want to see what happens if we list it here. And I said, okay, that's great. We pre-signed the price reduction. 2 weeks go by and I say, hey, we have had 0 showings. It seems like the market has made itself clear. What do you want to do from here? And they said, we'd like to keep it on the market at this price for now. I just lost my job and I don't have anywhere to go. So I actually don't want it to sell really fast. Once I have a job, I would like to do that massive price reduction and get it in where it needs to be. And I said, okay, great. Are you sure you don't want to just withdraw it from the market? They said, well, if somebody's willing to pay this price from it, then we would make it anything work. And I said, okay. So we kept it on the market. Okay, go ahead, Billy.
So you answered part of my question because Lionel on Monday's training, he talked about having a pre-filled out change order with a set number at the 2 to 3 week mark.
Yep.
I thought that was a great idea. We discussed it with our team actually for something to consider moving forward. But I'm going to have one of those conversations today. And it's probably going to be a $50,000 suggested reduction. And try to have it in place signed because I don't see, I'm willing to sell it at the price they want as long as we have a quick 2 to 3 week drastic reduced price to show where we need to be in the market.
Yeah, and I just back all of those up with NAR statistics, and you can find these, I believe, on the NAR website still. That gives you a percentage of if we're not getting showings, this is how far you're typically off in price. If you're getting showings and nobody's writing an offer, this is how far you're off in price. If you're getting lowball offers, this is how far you are off on price. And so going into that conversation, knowing those statistics and being able to show those and let the data do the heavy lifting and explaining where the market is currently trending and how we're seeing, and if there's an interest rate bump, and this is what I always say, it's like, you know what? If the interest rates drop, then it could cause your home to sell at this price. If they don't move or if they increase, it's actually going to drop your buying or your selling power because it drops the buyer's ability to have the monthly payment that they're looking for. So we're going to watch what the interest rates do. We're going to do this. We're going to see this. We're going to watch all of this. And then I take that back when we go back to that conversation in 2 weeks for that 3 week price reduction. And I say, remember, we talked about all these. Well, none of this happened. Actually, interest rates increased. Actually, this is what's happened. More homes have come on the market. So you have more competition, blah, 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 whatever it is. Yep. Okay.
You said that was on National Realtor where I can pull up information like that?
National Association of Realtors has a bunch of statistics. There's also stats within the MLS as well. So, okay. Only show homes on what they need. I make this joke in every single consultation I do. I'll be like, we have this crazy cool thing. It's called the internet. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but we can use it to rule out homes that don't work for you. Now, sometimes we're still going to see a home that was advertised online, and the pictures look great, and we're going to walk in it and be like, whoa, what happened here? But we can pretty much rule out all of your needs from the internet. So I don't want to be showing you homes that don't fit and don't work for you, because that's a waste of your time. If you're having to get childcare, if you're having to take off from work, if you're having to do XYZ, and as well as the sellers, we don't want to give them a false hope that we're going to be a buyer that's right for their home. When we could find that out online and realize having 2 toilets is so important to you because you're potty training someone. And this home only has 1. Now, they might say back to you, well, I could actually get away with 1 toilet if there was space for another one. And now I know that's not actually a make it or break it. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. And then we dive into that conversation. Here's the thing. This is a common one I get. Hey, we found this home online and you didn't send it to me. Okay, let's look at that home. I'll pull it up. I'll see. Oh, because I always ask them, I tell them they can have 5 make it or break it's, and I am not going to send them homes that don't fit those 5 make it or break it's, right? They didn't send it to me, and it's because they got so excited looking at it on Zillow that they forgot to check that it was right next to, I don't know, a cemetery, and she's freaked out by cemeteries, so she won't be. I said, well, there's actually a cemetery about a block away. Is that okay with you? And they're like, dang it, never mind. Awesome. And then sometimes, because buyers aren't liars, they're just discovering things. Sometimes they realize, well, actually, that's not that big of a deal if we love the house. Like, if everything else is perfect with the home, we're okay being near a cemetery. Okay, cool. Let's go see it and see if it works. And then that's really able to help me gauge when we're in the home and there's a cemetery a block away and they love this home and it's perfect. It is a real make it or break it, because if they're like, yeah, she's like, I can't do it. You're like, great. Now we know we're not looking at any more homes that are by a cemetery. I know you already said that. And then you had to experience it. And so you were just confirming, perfect. This wasn't a waste of my time or your time. This was important. This was important discovery for all of us. Okay. Only show the best properties for your buyer. That seems a little outdated. The best properties that I show my buyers are the ones that fit their needs and give us information around what they're looking for. Okay, have MLS pricing. Yeah, you should know. I usually have my iPad with the MLS information on it. I have like just the MLS sheet. I don't print it out. I'm not a paper person. If I'm out and don't have my iPad and then I'm just like, oh, I set up a showing, I'm gonna go, I just have it on my phone. Not a big deal. If you're out showing multiple homes at once, I always set it up through Google Maps, and then I send them a text that says, first home, 123 Main Street at 3 p.m. Second home, 134 Main Street at 3:45, and then they see these time frames that we have set. And then that helps them move through the homes a little quicker. Sometimes they'll say, oh my gosh, that's not enough time to see a home. And I say, you know what? After 20 minutes in a home, most people are able to take it in. And if we need to do a second showing on a home that you have fallen in love with, we can absolutely do that. Okay. Be knowledgeable about the property and the neighborhoods. I feel like you can find anything on your phone if you know how to find that information. You don't have to memorize it. Raising comparable sales to the answer. I don't do this. And the reason I don't do this is because they'll say, well, do you think this is priced well? And here's the thing. Most of the areas I'm showing homes in, I know about if it's priced well, or if it seems like it's going to be a hot home, or if it's like, whoa, this is way out of ball. And I'll say, well, my instinct tells me this seems a little high, but let's pull the numbers. And sometimes I'm wrong. My instinct can be wrong sometimes. And I'll go to them and I'll say, wow, I pulled the numbers in the neighborhood. Because here's the thing. I don't want to pull the numbers on 7 homes that we go see. I only want to pull the numbers on the 1 home they're actually interested in. That's it. And sometimes they're just asking the question because they're like, I don't like this home and I'm not willing to pay this price for this home. But it's like, do you think other people are paying this for this home? And it's like, well, different strokes for different folks, people. Okay. And then when I am showing homes, point out, I always say, especially on my first showing with someone, I said, hey, a lot of the times my buyers really appreciate if I point out the good, the bad, and the ugly. How do you feel about that? And they'll say, oh yeah, let's see. Be careful. You can't cross certain lines and boundaries. And I say, main things I'm looking for are what we expect to come up in an inspection and what we expect to hold back in appraisal. And then they'll say, what do you mean hold back in appraisal? And I'll re-explain these things, even though I already did it in our consultation. And I'll say, okay, so you're FHA lending. You see how this deck is higher than 36 inches. It's going to need a railing in order for your loan to go through. Or likely the appraiser is going to call it out saying it'll need a railing. You know, sometimes they don't call it out and all good. And I'm looking at the fascia boards and I'll say, there's no paint on these fascia boards, and likely the appraiser is going to want to see those painted. It's not a big deal and it's not going to hold us back from closing. It's just a negotiation factor that I would expect to come up in inspections and appraisals. And I make sure that the way that I say what I'm saying isn't steering them away from the home, but instead is informative and there's no judgment around it. So one of the things that I see a lot of people can have a bunch of judgment around is you walk in the home and it smells like smoke, right? Okay. If my clients walk in the home and it smells like smoke and they have no response, then I'll say, you know, okay, I said, the home does have a smoke odor. Is that a problem for you? And they'll say, oh yeah, I don't really notice. Not a big deal. Great. Okay. Instead of like, oh my gosh, this home smells like smoke. This is terrible, which I've seen other agents do. And then it's like, well, actually we smoke and I don't like, you know, like they don't care, or, you know, their grandma smokes and they've lived they're used to a smoke smelled home. Or dogs. That's a big one, right? Like you walk in the home and the home smells like wet dog and your buyer doesn't notice. And you're like, okay, there is a little bit of a wet dog smell. Is that a problem for you? And they're like, I have 6 dogs at home. Awesome. You know, or you walk in and the buyer's like, I can't even stand in here. I'm going to vomit. And you're like, great, let's just go. I don't know if this is going to be a good fit for you then. So, okay. Okay. Agents, dealing with other agents is so much fun. Here's the thing, as a buyer's agent, you do whatever that listing agent wants you to, as long as it first aligns with what your client wants, right? There are super simple things you can do. Follow the showing time directions, follow the offer directions, unless there's a team that I write a lot of offers on their listings here in Newburgh. And they always ask for 48 hours notice. It's just standard for their team. We don't give 48 hours notice. We give 24 hour. And I always say, like, listen, my client has been looking for a while and they're so excited about this that they just like weren't comfortable with 48 hour. They just really wanted to do 24 hours. And I just, you know, and they're like, I understand. Yeah, 48 can be hard for some people. Yeah, thank you so much for understanding, you know. Because it's important to my client to only do 24 hours. Okay. Be kind, be courteous. Don't yell at people. Don't text people insistently. Like if you send them a text, give them an appropriate amount of time to reply, right? It's different if you're standing at a home and all of a sudden there's no key in the lockbox. You can call them repeatedly and be like, hey, there's no key in the lockbox. Not sure what you want me to do, blah, 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 right? Until you hear from them. Yeah. Okay. So home tour toolkit. I'm not gonna lie, I don't keep a lot of this with me. I always have snacks for myself, not for my client, and I always have water for myself because I talk a lot in the home and I'm talking to my client a lot, and then I get into my car to go drive to the next one and I'm inevitably thirsty and hungry. During COVID, we had sanitizing wipes, hand sanitizer, masks, we had all of this stuff, but I don't have as much of it. I don't carry any paperwork with me physically. I have it all on my iPad. I think an iPad is a great tool for real estate. I do have a flashlight, a tape measure, a pair of boots that I can pop on that I could either go hike in or use as rain boots if it starts like pouring and these properties are really muddy. And I have an umbrella and a raincoat. So those are my items. I usually have a piece of paper and pen in my car, but that's just because I have those. I got a, oh my gosh, it's one of those tape measures. So I have like a real tape measure, but then I have one that I can just put up against the wall and it like has a laser thing on it off of Amazon for like $25 or something like that. And that has been like a lifesaver because it's so fast to use it. And then I seem like the savior of like, would their queen size bed fit in here? I'm like, well, the room's this large, so yes, it would. It's just easier than the tape measure, it feels like. And I use a lot of tape measures because I'm also a contractor. So, but in that situation, it's just easier. Yeah. Okay. Always remember safety. Do not meet a random person at a vacant house by yourself. If you don't have Find My Friends or something like that, get it. Make sure people know where you're at. Be aware that there are cameras on a lot of homes now, so be careful what conversations you're having. I don't always hold back when I'm having conversations in a home unless it's about negotiation strategies or conversations. Like if my client's really interested in the home, I'm going to be careful. But like I walked in a home the other day and the home reeked, and then like it smelled like wet dog, and then it had a bunch of like plug-in glades, and then they had like 6 cameras that were just like following us. So I know that they were like physically watching us in that moment while I was showing this home. And I said, how do you feel about the glade plugins? I asked my client, and she's like, oh, it just feels like they're hiding something. And I said, yeah, it kind of does feel like that, huh? And that's the feedback that the agent of that client probably wants me to say that, because they're probably fighting with their client on the other end to be like, you have to stop trying to cover up the dog smell that everyone knows is there. Like, it's going to be a deterrent for people, and you aren't, like they already know that. And I'm not worried about offending them because my client's 0% interested in buying this house. Okay. Always announce yourself. I have shown a vacant home and had some very awkward situations where like their teenage son happened to come home for the weekend, or not teenage, their college son happened to bring his girlfriend home for the weekend, and mom and dad didn't know. And you walk in the door and there they are. And so just always knock, even if you know that the home's supposed to be vacant or the clients are supposed to be out. Things happen. Make sure that people know where you're at. People can track you, even if it's a buyer that you know or you've met a couple times. If you don't like personally know them, it's just good that somebody knows where you're at. Yeah. Okay. Your job is not to show homes, it's to sell homes. One of the questions I ask when we're in the home or when we're finishing the home is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where does this home rate for you? 1 being, I hate it, let's burn it to the ground. 10 being, I love it, I'd pay $1 million for this house. And then we usually sit somewhere in the middle, and I'm happy with a 7 or 8, honestly. I'm like, great. And then I ask the question following up is, so let's say they tell me it's a 5. I say, okay, well, what would need to happen in order to make it an 8? And sometimes the response of that is, I don't know how this home could be an 8. And I'll say, well, if it were cheaper, would it be an 8? And they'll say, yeah, I mean, if it were $30,000 cheaper, I'd totally buy this and it'd be an 8. Okay. So it's just like the price for the value just isn't there for you. Yep. Cool. Awesome. And I'm able to use that scale. And then I compare between this home and the home we just saw. What are your thoughts? Oh, I like this home way more. Cool. So we're going to rule out that last one. And then on the next home, I'm comparing that home and the next one. I never well, I can't say never because that's an inflammatory word. I usually don't show more than 5 homes in a day. And I'll tell this to my clients when they're like, here's 15 homes I want to see. Awesome. I'll say, let's split those up, because after you see 5 homes, they all kind of start to run together and you're not really able to make a decision. And they'll be like, oh, that makes sense. And it's like, I want you to be able to actually see the home, see everything that's worth, and not just be exhausted from seeing 4, 5, 7, 10 homes that you can't really decide if that home is a good fit for you. So then I'll say, if there's 15 on their list, let's pick your top 5 and see those first. And then if none of those work for you, we can keep going down your list tomorrow. So like that's usually on a Friday. Like on Saturday, we're going to see 5, and then we can pick another 5 to see on Sunday. If they're like in town for the weekend and they just flew in and we need to get through as many homes as we can, we typically do 5 in the morning, take a 2-ish hour break, I suggest they go to lunch, or I take them to lunch depending on the type of people they are. Some people, they want a break from me. I totally get that. They need to go decompress. I'll give them a gift card or something to go get food somewhere, or like I usually ask them up front, like, hey, do you want to go to lunch with me, or would you guys like some time to go explore on your own? I would personally like the time to be away from you for a little bit too. And if they want to go to lunch with me, great. I'm happy to do that. But yeah. So, and then we'll go see another 5, 6 homes. And then do more the next day. Okay. Reasons buyers hesitate. They're afraid to commit. This is true. Sometimes pulling the trigger to actually write the offer is scary. Oftentimes you can combat this with information. The more information they have, typically it's easier for them to make a decision. They don't like a minor detail of a home. You should clear this up in a consultation with them. And if they're so stuck on something, but everything else makes sense for them, and there's nothing else in their price point, talk to them about the minor detail. If it's like, well, the whole home smells like dog, it's like, okay, let's talk about that. What do we need to do to get the dog smell out? You love the neighborhood. You love the school district it's in. You love the backyard. You love the layout of the home. Do we need to ask them for a credit to replace the flooring, to the carpets? Right? So find a solution for whatever the problem of this minor detail is. Okay. They feel like they haven't seen enough homes. I don't find this a lot in my younger clients. I only find this in my clients that are in the age range of like 45 to 60. They have been conditioned to believe that they need to see 50, 60 homes before they find the right one. I deal with this up front in my consultation when I say, can you guess the average number of homes my client sees before writing an offer? And they're like, I don't know, 50. And I also know this is giving me information that's stored in my back of my brain that this is going to be a hesitation for them. And I say, actually, it's 5. And do you know why? Because we have this crazy cool thing now called the internet, right? And then I go into that, and then we have a conversation. And then oftentimes it's usually the husband, if it's a husband and wife pairing, goes, how can anyone make a decision if they've only seen 5 homes? And I said, yeah, that seems like a lot. And sometimes people see a little bit more, and that's okay. Like, it's okay if we see more than the 5. It just gives me a really good range after we see 5 homes. If you haven't found one yet, I'm not doing my job fully. And so I need to ask you some more questions, and we need to do some more discovery. And then he's usually like, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then the truth is, like, sometimes they do see 20 homes, but that's really rare for me. It just is. Okay. And then they need to sleep on it or get the opinion of a trusted advisor. Whew, this is a good one because sleeping on it in my market right now, they can. So normally I just am like, okay, where would you like, they love the home, where would you like to go from here? And sometimes they're like, let's go write an offer right now. Perfect, let's do it. Sometimes they're like, I really need to think about it. And I'll say, what is it that you need to think about? And then is it that they're afraid to commit? Is it these other items? And then sometimes it's like, this is especially like my younger clients. Well, I really want to talk to my parents about it. Ugh. I mean, great, like, awesome, good for you. Talk to your parents about it. And I will say, if they want to call me and discuss it, I would be happy to talk to them too. Because the worst thing is to have a parent who thinks they know everything, and the kid who's actually married and, you know, has 2 kids asking their parents, and then not properly relaying the information you're giving to the parent, and then the parent giving bad advice around that to the child that's actually the home buyer. You know, does that all make sense? And so sometimes it's just really nice to do that with the parent. And then, you know what? People are like anti this sometimes, and I am like super pro. I'm like, you know what? If you love this home, why don't we set up a second showing? Because offers aren't due for 3 days. Let's set up another showing where your parents can be there. And they're like, yeah, we'd love that. I didn't know we could do that. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I do not want the parents there on the initial showings. I want them there on the second showing. So then we do it. And then I'm able to address and know who they have in their ear, what that person is saying. And yeah, make sure that they're comfortable. Okay. This is also like, have you guys heard of or talked about the disc profiling? DISC is, I think one of the best things when you're dealing with buyers and sellers, if you understand what their motivation is and the way that they're processing information. So I am a high ISD. So those are my 3 highs. I'm also a high C as well, but whatever. That one doesn't really come out in my processing as much, but I'm a super high IS. 99 high S and 89 D. So the way that I process information comes out in a pretty direct manner, as well as like I'm going to say things in a bubbly, fun way. Bottom line, right? Like you see it in the way that I am teaching this class and talking to you guys. But when I'm talking with my client, I want to know how they're processing information, because sometimes you have a buyer walking through the home and they're really quiet. And then you're like, what do you think of this home? And they're like, I love it. And you're like, you've said nothing. And normally I know that they're a C at that point, because they're taking in all of the information before they have an emotional response to things. Okay. The S is going and opening all of the cabinets. They're going and opening all the drawers. Anyways, all of this is like really good if you can take a DISC class. I think my dad teaches one. But it's such good information in how to understand and be able to read people and the way that they're taking in and understanding information. And you often have, if you're having 2 people buy at the same time, those 2 people are responding differently and taking in the information differently. And so you want to be able to cater to both of those people. Okay. Let's see. Always go back to their motivation, go back to their needs and wants, advise them as a consult and fiduciary, help them understand their fears. Don't devalue their fears. This is a big purchase. They should have some form of hesitation. You just want to know that the form of hesitation they have isn't going to ruin a transaction, but instead it's just because they've never done this before. Solve their challenges, calculate the cost of waiting, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. Any ahas or questions or anything before we move on? I'm going to blow my nose again because I have a cold. Nothing. You guys are quiet. Okay. All right, you guys, next. This is a question I ask to all of my sellers. What are the 3 most important things in the agent that you're hiring today when I'm interviewing to be their agent? What are the 3 most important things? And then I cater my entire presentation to them based off of those 3 items. And so if they tell me that I want somebody who's gonna know the market data, AKA price your home competitively, and they said I want somebody that's gonna market, these are the 3 I normally get. Price it well, market it, and be honest, and like good communication is typically the last one. Then I know what they want from me. I can win with them when I know what they want. And I just straight up ask the question. Now, obviously they want these other things too. They want to know how to get their home sold. They're going to want to know timelines. They're going to want to know all those things. But if I'm able to do those 3 things really well, then it's going to be a win. Okay. Price, timeline, and conveyance. We start in the same place with sellers as we do buyers, is we are figuring out what they need, what they want, what their motivation is. And then we're just having different types of conversations around price, right? And their timeline. Same thing with sellers, as we say with buyers. Sellers are also not usually just trying to hide information and trying to hide things from you. They might get more information, like my seller who then lost their job, and their world might change. And so then they have to change things for us. And then their motivation changes, and then this happens, right? They find out they're gonna be a grandparent, and now they realize we need another bedroom so that grandbaby can come stay at our house, and their parents are comfortable with that, right? So things just change, and that's okay. And so we have to be gracious and not let our frustrations get in the way, or feel like we're wasting time. This is all a discovery process. Okay. We can only control the price and the condition of the home. Okay. And even the condition, sometimes we can't control it. So you sometimes have to have sensitive conversations about the odors, about the smoking, about decluttering, right? You have a beautiful set of teacups and things like that. Here's what I always say when my client's house is messy and like really messy. I say, listen, the best thing you can do for your home is to just start packing, because you're going to be moving. And so why don't we just do it now? And then it's going to be easier for you down the road. Then you're not worried about having to put things up or do things. Another super simple trick I have for my clients, and I offer to buy them this. They don't always take me up on it. And then sometimes I show up with one, is I get, those like, they're black with a yellow lid totes from like Home Depot or Costco. And I give them, and I label it their kitchen tote. So then I said, when you're leaving for the day and we're on the market, everything on your kitchen table and on your kitchen counters, throw it in this tote. You might need two, depends how messy their home is. Throw it in that tote, take it out to your garage and stack it. And then you can bring it right back in that night and have all of your stuff available. Especially for people that are just like messy people.
What happened?
And just remember that the goal of your client is the most important thing, because I just sold a home to somebody. I just sold somebody's home, and they they really struggle with their mental health. Super high anxiety. Everything felt like too much to this person. She's on really high anxiety medication. Like the kind of stress this client had was I got on the phone with them and their counselor, their therapist, in order to have these conversations, because it felt like so much. And the end goal for this person was to get her into a new home. Like they bought brand new construction so that it could lower her anxiety and stress. And so my job as the agent was to match her goals, was not to get their home in the top perfect position in order to net them the top dollar. That wasn't it. The goal was we had a number we needed to hit in order for them to be able to buy, but it was, and I had asked her this, I said, hey, we have like a couple routes we can go here. I said, I can tell you the list to get your home in tip top condition in order to sell it for top dollar. Or we can price it according to where your home is currently at. And she's like, I need that. And I said, great, let's do it. So just remembering to keep the goals of your client as the most important motivating factor, and in the way that you're giving them, advice, right? Because we totally could, be like, you need to, clean all of this and do all of this. And she couldn't do it. It just wouldn't match the season of life that she's in and her abilities in that moment. Other things though that you do is remind them to remove guns, right? Like lock up your guns, remove jewelry from the home. Don't have a computer sitting out, right? Like a laptop, things that people, and I say to them, I'm like, it's really rare that people swipe stuff from a home. I would just hate for you to be the one exception and then they swipe something from your house. And she's like, yeah, I would hate that, Okay. Okay, great. Agent and client communication. Provide a strong foundation for a sustainable relationship, right? If they're calling you all the time and texting you all the time and they're expecting, we just recently fired a client who expected us to respond within 5 minutes of sending us a message. I'm not going to do that. Like my husband doesn't even expect that of me. Like that's just like not a good fit. And so we said that to them. We said, I just really think what you're wanting from an agent and what we can offer you don't align. So I think you should find somebody else to work with. Set and manage your expectations proactively throughout the transaction, create peace of mind for your clients. And so understanding like this client who had super high anxiety, and her other thing is she was really afraid of people judging her. So I made sure that the type of feedback I gave for the home, right? Because agents said stuff like, this home would sell better if you had cleaned it. And it's like, what they don't know is that we spent over $700 having a cleaner come in, right? They don't know that. And I take that and I say, thank you so much for your feedback. And I don't pass that on to my client because that feedback isn't helpful in getting her home sold. What is helpful is to say to her, the condition of the home, they felt like it was priced too high. And she'd be like, oh, okay, great. You know, I don't need to make her feel lesser for what she's trying to do here, right? Sometimes with certain clients, they're like, I had a client who was like, I'm a professional cleaner. And I was like, your home is not clean. And it needed the feedback. We had 3 agents in 1 weekend say, this home feels dirty. And I said that. And I said, guys, can I get my cleaner in there to clean your home? And you'll see what people are talking about. Because sometimes when people are like professional cleaners or do whatever it is, they just don't see certain things in their own home. And they got it cleaned, and my clients walked in, they were like, yeah, you're right. Our home was dirty. And I'm like, I told you that. The agents, but you didn't hear it. You couldn't hear it from me, but you could hear it from the feedback of the other agents. Okay. I have had to fire a client because of a fair housing violation. The client specifically said they would not sell their home to somebody Chinese. That is illegal, guys. Yeah. So, you know, you just go and you have the conversation, and it's hard, but it doesn't, at that point, it doesn't really, like, it's not about your reputation. It's not about this. It's obviously you speak everything you can in love and kindness. And we just don't tolerate that kind of thing. I say, okay, actually, that's a fair housing violation. It's not my job to change that person and their viewpoint. It is my job to protect my license and my livelihood for my household. And to not participate in that. Like, I'm not going to participate in somebody being racist. That is not okay. And so explaining this is a fair housing violation. We cannot and will not discriminate based on race. So this is not a good fit, and I will not be taking this listing. So, okay. No commission is worth your reputation ever. Or your sanity, guys. It's not worth your sanity. Okay, you guys have this 14-step marketing plan in your participation guide. So you guys can go through that. If we have time, we're almost at the end. We can go through it together if you'd like. Okay, the message you put out to attract prospective buyers and sellers is everything. Why would they want to contact you in this market? What would they get if they did? These 2 questions are at the heart of all effective marketing. I would also add to that is you want people to know, like, and trust you. Okay. So they want to know what they're getting and why they should contact you, but you also want them to like you. People don't work with people they don't like, bottom line. So make sure your marketing is likable. And yeah, okay. All right, the MLS listing reflects your brand, so do it right. If you have a listing, hire a professional photographer. Don't be the professional photographer. Set the right schedule for your listings. In my market, the most homes go live on Thursday. And so I want my home to go live on Thursdays. Because I'm going to get the most views than if I put it live on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I'm going to get more views between 4 and 6 p.m. So I'm going to put my listing live at 3:30. And then it's going to be the first one mostly that pops up for people. Utilize floor plans, you guys. There is a free app. I want to say it's Cubio, or I'd have to ask my husband what it's called, that we use, and we just do a free floor plan of the house. It makes a huge difference in the ability for people to understand how the picture's layout is. Also, it helps so that you're not getting people in the home, like, especially if it's a weird layout, like, you're not getting people there that it's not going to work for them. Like, it's simple to be able to put all the information for the listing in that you can. Like, it's so frustrating when you're like, my clients need an office on the main level, or a guest bedroom, or some form of a bedroom on the main level because their parents are elderly and they want somewhere for them to be able to stay when they come. And then to not have put in the MLS, like, which level the bedrooms are on, like, that is, like, there's a spot for that. It's simple. So fill out all of that information. You're getting paid thousands of dollars to sell this home. You can do that. Okay. Let's see here. The KWLS is a great tool. I think ours automatically pull, or the office does it for us. But they have great marketing stuff. They have pretty marketing stuff. We are not, most of us are not like graphic designers or designers. So use the preset stuff, guys. It looks good. You just start to lower the look of your brand when you create something and you're not a designer. That's the nice way I'm going to say that. Also, make sure you see how this KW here up on the top right, how there's no background on it. Use the KWs without a background when you're on something that doesn't have a background. It's those small things that make you look a little more professional. If you need help figuring that out, I think Corinne can probably help you. Make sure your signage is within KW standards. Corinne can help you. You can evaluate me if you want. Okay. Ahas or questions or comments? All right, I'm that good.
I actually have a question since I've just been listening to you. You have a very lovely voice when I'm doing work. What is typically the response when you fire a client? Like, I'm just curious.
Okay. I have had our most recent ones that we fired, they got super defensive and they fired us because, you know, they had to get the last word in. And we were like, great. Awesome. I've also had another client that we fired and they were like, we've already been working with another agent. Wonderful. I'm so excited for you. And then the one, the specifically the ones that were racist said, we have another agent we told this to and they had no problem with it. And I said, that's fine. They're welcome to put their ethics on the line and I am not. So, yep. So, and then, you know, I've been ghosted by clients that it was like, I've done nothing wrong. I've worked so hard for you. And why are you not responding to me? And it was like, oh, they went and bought with the listing agent. Great. I had a buyer broker agreement with them and just decided not to pursue it because it wasn't worth my mental energy. So anyone else? Any questions, comments?
So question, when you respond to dismissing a client or when you show the emotions of fine, see you later, do you have any backlash with that instead of saying less in the end? Does that make sense?
No, I'm not tracking. Can you say it again or say it a different way?
So I guess I haven't had to fire a client yet because I'm new, but I've already wanted to. But when it comes to saying it, is it almost one of those, do you ever worry about the backlash if you dismiss them as a client or you terminate your terms and just say, hey, I think you're going to be a better fit elsewhere? When they respond in a negative, defensive way, and then you respond the way you just presented, as in, great, I'm happy for you. Like, you can hear that it's a screw you on both sides, the body language and response. So do you ever have backlash from that instead of just leaving it?
That's really funny that you say that because my response, and maybe it's the computer, isn't like screw you. My response is like genuinely like great, like please find a different agent. Like I am happy for you. And the most recent client that we did fire, I was a little concerned that we would get a negative review online. And so I was concerned about that. And we actually waited to fire them longer than we should have because I was worried about negative backlash. And they were super inflammatory people. And they blew everything out of proportion. And it got to a point in the relationship with them where I was more concerned about getting sued than I was about any negative press or whatever they might put out on me, or my husband. And so when we let them go, they were the ones that were like, well, we're firing you. And we're like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Awesome. And all of that was over text because I needed written proof that this, in case we got sued. And they made some threats at us and nothing came of them. So I'm not super concerned about it. My bigger concern is I don't want to get sued for something and either lose my license or have to pay somebody out because they're idiots. I think I can fight any reviews or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I do wonder, do we have the same client?
Maybe. Are they also needing to sell a manufactured home in Albany?
No. It's just funny because it's definitely something where we're worried about the backlash of a possible lawsuit. You know, they over-inflammatory everything, make it bigger than what it is, you know, so it's like, gosh. So you tread lighter with those kind of clients, I feel. And I don't know if it's we tolerate more because we're afraid of the amount of backlash when it's literally pulled out of thin air.
Yep.
Maybe there's the truth to that.
And I think that's like I had to we had to cut ties, and when I started getting concerned that they might sue us just because they're so inflammatory, we stopped getting on the phone with them and we only would do text messages. And then because Oregon is a one-sided state, like only one person has to agree to be recorded. So like I can be the person agreeing to be recorded. When we would show houses, I would have my phone recording the verbal conversations.
There you go.
Good
to know.
And then we fired them because it just I thought getting them under contract would be the fix. And then I think there's this like oh my gosh, what is it? There's like this I can't think of it, where it's like, well, you've invested so much time and money that like if I just invest a little bit more, it's gonna be fine. And it wasn't. And so yeah, okay. Let's see here. We are really almost done. Success with co-agents. Just be kind, be professional, work well with them, communicate the way they need to be communicated with. I just finished 3, but one of the worst co-broker relationships I've ever been in. And when things get bad and people are desperate right now for business, some people are, because they're just not doing what they need to do. And they were used to the comfy, cozy business would just come for them the last 3 years. People get mean and co-brokers get mean, and our job is to not take it, right? Like it's not our job to be a punching bag for other agents, and these are rarer. And if your client wants to buy the home, you kind of a little bit have to be a punching bag, but you cannot let your ego get in the way of like defending yourself. Like you don't have to be the last word, and it is not my job to sit there like I got like screamed at on the phone a week ago. And I have all the principal brokers involved, and it's a messy, tough transaction. And it's not I don't need to defend myself to this human. This human this guy has such a big ego that he has to get the last word in and has to scream at me and belittle me and call me a child and all of these things and explain that he's been in the business for 35 years and I'm doing things wrong, even though I'm 100% not, and I am in the right. And I don't need to fight him on that. So I just say, okay, anyways, this is what I need an answer to, or this is where we're going. And, I've moved all communication to text and phone, or to text and email only, but I don't even refute his claims anymore, or whatever it is that he's claiming. And I just say, I need to know this information. I need to know when the appraiser is going out there. I need to know if the appraisal has been completed yet. This is what I need in order for my client to be able to buy this home, because that's my focus. My client wants to buy this home. And then just remembering that even in the good relationships, like, your goal is to get your client what they need. So, you know, being kind, being courteous, not being like, it is really frustrating when I have like 15 showings on a listing and your buyer is like, but what are the other offers? And I'm like, just write the offer. Like, I'm not going to tell you what the other offers are. So if your client wants the home, write an offer. If they don't want the home, okay, move on. But I don't want to get on the phone 4 different times over a weekend where I'm trying to spend time with my family and also answer all the questions. I'm going to answer the questions. I'm going to get on the phone. I'm going to do all of these things that are right for my client. And it's not like you're more work for me. If you're more work for me and I have 2 identical offers, my client is probably going to accept the other offer, because as I'm explaining my relationship with these clients or with these other agents, that's going to be a big part. Hi, Joel.
Yeah.
Hey,
How are you?
Good. Okay, guys. That is the end of today's class. We have 1 minute for any questions, comments, ahas, anything they want to share. Hi, Annan. And then you guys, I hope that you are staying for Winning Wednesdays.
Winning Wednesdays.